what can fulfill me if I were to die tomorrow? And I was like, there's only one answer.
Ooh.
And it was God, right? Because even after you die, you don't really die. You just relocate, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Because while your physical body may stay on this earth, your soul still lives on.
Welcome to Society Reformed.
Lesson 4, I believe.
That's right.
Let's get it.
Let's get into it. It's a heavy hitter today. We're talking about faith. We're going to be talking about our faith, about our religion and how it takes place in our life. And we're going to extrapolate that into what role religion plays in a society and in a culture. And we're just gonna talk about it. It's gonna be a nice conversation about faith and religion.
It's gonna be a good episode.
I hope y'all enjoy.
I think religion as a whole is it's beneficial to society. But see, the problem is when people kind of, I don't want to say take it to an extreme, but when they see, because the religion, I would say, when I mention religion, I'm thinking of my religion, right?
Yeah.
But you have to take into account all these other religions that are on the world, right? So when I say religion, it's talking about Christianity, Catholicism, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm kind of neglecting Islam and, is Islam really? Cut this out.
No. Islam is a religion.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, Islam just reached 2 billion followers, right?
I would say people affiliated with Islam.
Yeah.
There was I'm not sure if this is like a proven statistical report, but it was said that Islam is supposed to overtake Christianity as the top world religion.
Do you know how many people follow Christianity?
It's somewhere in the, I would say,
Isn't it like 3 and a half
I want to say 3
billion?
billion, yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a lot of people. But now let me ask you this.
Okay.
Right, people say that they follow it, right? But how many actually live it? You know what they say? It's like many of you, and this is from scripture directly. It says that many of you on the day of judgment, I'm paraphrasing, many of you on the day of judgment will come to me and saying, Lord, Lord, look at all these things I've done for you, and I will tell you, depart from me, for I did not know you. And it's talking about, because you have all these people and they say, yeah, man, I'm a Christian, I go to church, once, twice a month probably. And they'll live their day without that sense of, I guess, not a sense of identity, but just sense of that they're actually meant to be living according to a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And I try my best. Sometimes, I fall away, but it's because I'm not perfect. However, I would say consciously I make an effort to live by that standard, the one that I'm called to do. But you go out and you see all these people and they'll call themselves, Christian or whatever, and their actions just say the complete opposite.
I feel like that's what a main problem is in the religion that we follow, is that there's a lot of, I guess you can say, quote unquote, fake Christians.
Fakers.
But then again, that's just kind of the culture.
It is, yeah.
Almost.
But I think it's because a lot of people never actually. I'm just making a general assumption, right? Yeah. I'm assuming that a lot of people who are Christian, right, were raised in a household that was a Christian household, but they themselves never found that identity, right? So they're only associated with it because they were kind of brought into it upon force, right? And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I think that in order to really find value in your faith, you have to discover it yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's more of a personalized connection. Because you can, go to church all your life as a kid, right? But how many times did you look forward to going to church when you were a little kid, right?
Yeah, whenever I was going to church when I was a little kid, the mass felt so long.
It felt
like hours.
I'd be in the pew, sleeping, right? But it's because you don't really understand, the whole point of it. You just think it's another activity that takes an hour away out of your Sunday. You got to get dressed up early in the morning and go to this place.
It almost felt like a burden at times. Mm-hmm. For sure.
I'd be making excuses to get out of it. Because when you're a kid, you don't really get the point of it. You're like, ugh, I was sitting watching some old dude talk, right? And I'm in the back just trying to stay awake the whole time. But as you get older, right, you kind of take note of the words that are actually being said instead of just, being there to just be there because you're forced to. You actually go there to learn.
Yeah.
Ooh, think of like church as like kind of like an extra classroom, right? Because when you're there, you're like learning, but in a sense that it's almost it is. I want to say, I don't want to be cliche, but it's like life changing, right? Once you actually take into account what the actual message that you're being told is, right? Because the last time that I remember actually not wanting to go to church, it was a couple years ago, right? Because now I kind of I don't look forward to it, but I understand that I need to go, and so that's kind of my way. Like, I like it now.
Yes,
that's something I find joy in. But I remember before, once I made that click, right, that shift, it was like, okay, you know what? I think that there's actually a reason that my parents are making me go to this, and it's not because that they just want to bring me along with them. It's because they're doing it for me, so that I can grow up and raise the kids that have good values and good morals, and be brought up in a household that raises, good young individuals that live according to the will of God, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point, is to just follow, we're called to be like God, right? And so it starts with, I like to say this a lot, it starts at the base, it starts at the root, which really that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. I have friends who grew up in a family where they took them to church every Sunday, and for some reason it didn't click for them, and they just wanted to get out of that. They just did not like going to church, and they grew up with that mindset of never wanting to go. But then that kind of hurt them. It hurts them now because they don't have that guideline. They don't have those. They don't have that divine message being told to them every week. So whenever you leave that because you just don't want to go anymore, and it's maybe it's just a teenager's being rebellious, you're like, screw this, I'm not going to go to church, and I just don't like it. You're going to search for that spiritual factor in your life one way or another, even if it's a subconscious type of thing, because when you have a void in your life, usually sometimes it's spiritual, and that whole thing, and it's very interesting, because we're the only creature on earth that has this spiritual aspect to it. The fact that we're even able to feel spiritual in the first place is a miracle, I think. Because it's like, okay, we have the capacity to be spiritual, which doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
It truly doesn't make sense, because it's so divine, and it makes you feel so good whenever you do go to church and you understand the message. Especially when you're do you go to confession pretty often?
Yeah.
After confession, you just feel like the world's been lifted off of your shoulders.
Yeah. It's a really an amazing gift, right? But I would say church is like a foundation, but it shouldn't be exclusively, found in church, right? Take it further outside of church, because a lot of people, right? We'll go back to this. They call themselves Christian for 1 hour of the week, right? But then as soon as they leave the doors, all that just goes away. Yeah. So because really when you take the time to spend some solidarity with God, right? Yeah. Just you and Him, just having the time together, you actually feel a presence come upon you, and it's actually something that's indescribable, right? Because it can only be felt. You can't describe it with words. Just the way that it approaches you, right?
I like to think of it as the wind, because you can't see it, but you can feel it. Yeah.
That's no, there's sometimes when really that's all that you can do is just spend time with God, right? Especially as teenagers growing up, right? Because we find so many distractions, and you know what? Yeah. It's super hard nowadays.
Well, whenever we say that there's fake Christians and there's a lot of people who are not living according to God, we say that from our observations in our society, because we see a lot of things, especially me, and obviously you too. We see a lot of godless things in our society, especially in our culture as well. And that's the reason why we say that we think that there's a lot of people who say that they're Christians but don't really live like Christians, and it's kind of sad. It's almost depressing, because if you live according to God and you do everything according to Scripture, it's like one of the best feelings ever, because you know you're doing everything right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I would say it's actually harder to live a life according to God than it is to live one without, right? But because just of the way that our culture is, well, it's been like this, but now in the present times, right? Yeah. There's so many things that just take you away from it. It's like trying to be with the magnet, right? But your forces are kind of opposite, so you're always being pulled apart from each other.
Well, yeah, like whenever you don't have a spiritual aspect in your life, you're going to try and fill that void with something else. Mm-hmm. So that could be literally anything you can think of, especially pleasurable chemicals like alcohol or drugs. Yeah. You're going to try and find that spiritual aspect that's been missing in your life and something else. Mm-hmm. And people do that with a lot of things. But at the end of the day, they don't feel fulfilled. You know, you can go out and party and do whatever you want for a night. You can do it every weekend if you want, but you're still going to be, like, throughout the week, you're not going to have that spiritual aspect in your life that you need. And I think humans need something like that, because it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary to have a good spiritual aspect in your life.
Yeah, 100%.
Christianity, for me, it's incomprehensible to even think about how a religion has endured over 3,000 years. Mm-hmm. It's endured over empires, over the greatest cities to ever exist, and it's still here. Yeah, it's one of the longest lasting traditions ever. And another really cool thing that my uncle actually told me, he said that the mass that you partake in is the same mass that Peter and John partake in as well. It's the same thing. It's the same steps, I guess you can say. The same rituals.
Same format?
The same format, exactly. The same format that the original apostles went through as well. Yeah, no, that's really cool. There's so many things that can be talked about, right? And I would say, I want to take as a story, right? Because based on, if you've watched our past episodes, right, I talk a lot. I'll bring it in and I'll mention it, right? Faith. And I do that for a reason, right? It's because it's something that I really value. And I would say, like, not like a testimony, right, but my story of how it came to be. And so I remember it was the summer of 2020, I think. Yeah. And I just moved down here from Chicago, right? So I was in this intermediate place where I kind of just left all my friends, and we were in a time where we couldn't meet any new people. Yeah, it was during COVID.
So it was literally just me by myself, right? And man, that was like being a kid with like no connections with anyone in this entirely new state, right? And you want to reach out to people, but like you can't. It leaves you feeling so empty, and like you're like, why am I even here, right? Not like in this life, but like, you know, but it's like I had no choice but to. I remember sitting down one night and I'm like, what is the purpose of this? I'm like, I did all these things in my, like, I had this such a good life back then, and all that just got removed, right? Because I'm like, I went from up top to bottom. I just got pulled down, right? And I'm like, what was the point of it? And I really had to, you know, and I'm almost thinking that it happened just so that I can get a connection with God, right? Because before, I don't even remember spending time in prayer or anything like that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you moved down here, was it because of like family?
Yeah, it was just like a job relocation from my parents. So, but maybe it was like something.
What was your life like in Chicago? Did you live there your whole life?
So I was born here, right? But then when I was a kid, moved up for 10 years.
Around what age?
6 or 5 or 6.
5 or 6?
Yeah.
And that was for like a job thing?
Yeah. Same job.
So you were there for 10. Okay, where did you live in Chicago? Did you live in the city?
No, it wasn't. It was kind of like on the outskirts of it, right?
Okay.
So, but the culture was different, because I lived in a place where like I didn't feel like I fit in. Like here now, I feel like I fit in, right?
Yeah, because like you've become accustomed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like even back then, right? after living there for 10 years, I still felt like, I was kind of out of place. Like I still felt like my friends didn't really, connect with me. Like I had good friends right there, right? But then, it was just there. I felt like a subconscious disconnect between the two. And like, it was just something that I didn't want to get away from, but I felt like I needed a renewal in a sense.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I kind of saw this new opportunity as kind of like a second chance, like a clean slate almost when I came back. So I really took time because I had no choice, right? I was just spending time by myself. And I was like, you know what? I might give it a shot. And so actually at the time, I remember I was at my cousin's house because, my parents and everything, when they were moving the stuff down from there to here, right? I had to spend time because I moved there. I flew on a plane before them. Okay. So I got here before they did. So I was at my cousin's house and I was like, because it was the middle of the summer, so I had nothing to do. So I'd be staying up to like 3 a.m. every night. And I was like, you know what? I might go into this, like really put some thought and intent into this. And I was like, I just asked myself, I was like, what is the point of life? Ooh. And it was like a deep question for like a 14-year-old to be asking,
that's
right?
A heavy hitting question.
No, like literally.
Seriously.
And like what is the point of life? And so I did some research, right? And I did a lot of self-reflection too. I'm like, what do I want to find in life? Like, if I were to die, what would I want to say fulfilled me?
That's a really deep realization.
And I was like, and like looking back in hindsight at 14 years old, those are some complex questions to be asking.
To even ask a question like that at that age is really insane.
I know. So I was like, what can fulfill me if I were to die tomorrow? And I was like, there's only one answer.
Ooh.
And it was God, right? Because even after you die, you don't really die. You just relocate, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Because while your physical body may stay on this earth, your soul still lives on. And so that's what you're taking. So that's why, like, we preach a message of, living a good life. But you have to remember that this life, like everything, is temporary. And the only thing that's eternal is something that's outside of this life.
Yeah.
Which is God, right? So when I figured that out, I was like, I kind of like took a step back and I was like, I've been living my life like wrong. Not wrong, be like pretty much wrong.
But like,
right?
Like your life was missing something.
It was missing something, right? And I guess as a kid, right, it was kind of hard to take that into like actual perception, right? To actually perceive what I was experiencing at the time, right? But it makes you think, like, how many things in your life have happened and had led to something else, right? That you didn't expect the outcome to be, right? Because when I look at it, I felt like I was almost set up to make that realization.
Like blessings in disguise.
Blessings in disguise. Yes. So there are so many things that come with it. And now that I made that, I'm so thankful I did, because everything I do now, I involve God with. Because let's say something doesn't go according to like how I envisioned it happening. Like, I don't even worry about it anymore. I'm like, okay. Like, yeah, it's just a part of his plan now.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really healthy. There's a lot of stories I've heard whenever I go on retreats about these people who've made horrible decisions in their life. They become drug addicts or alcoholics, and they're on the brink of not wanting to live anymore.
Yeah.
But then they find God. They find that meaning in their life that they've been longing for. But I would say it's much better to come to that realization before you make the mistakes.
Yeah.
For sure.
But you know what? Sometimes I would say, because the best lessons that are learned are often the hardest ones.
Yeah.
Right? So think about it. If someone's on the brink of killing themselves, right? What do you think is going to save them from that? Is it going to be drugs and alcohol? Or is it going to be God? Right? Because I've seen a lot of stories where people will try both things, and then, like, they'll come to an answer with themselves, and it's going to be God, right? Because they can say, yeah, man, when I was in my hardest time, I was addicted to drugs, I was addicted to alcohol. It's because at that time, that's what was relieving them of their pain.
Yeah.
Right? But again, it just left them feeling worse.
But that kind of proves the point of not having a spiritual aspect in your life and trying to find something else that fills that void.
Yeah. Because a lot of people, really all they want is just to be fulfilled. Right? Just feel like they're I guess just like feel like that they have purpose in a sense, right? Or that they have meaning. And so
that's one of the hardest questions.
It is. And you know what? It takes a long time to understand that. Even now, like I can say that I have a story, right? But my story still has yet to be told. So I would say this is just like chapter 1. Maybe I'm in like chapter 2 right now. Maybe chapter 3. You know, we don't know. But there's so many things that happen over the course of one's life that when you take it and analyze it, it's like, and it depends because I again, it's like case to case, right? But I would ask the viewer, right? If you haven't yet, I would say even just like 5 minutes. It's like take 5 minutes and just like no music, silence, right?
Yeah.
Just by yourself. And just ask yourself this question. Like, what am I looking for in life? Because, you know, you can go to school, go to college, get a degree, get a good job. But if you have all this money, but you're not happy, like, are you successful? Right? And so the opposite can happen, right? You can have like no education, right? But you're happy. But then again, you live like a really bad life, like financially. Like I would say, you know, it's kind of hard to label what success is because it differs from person to person with their definition.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
But for me personally, in order to be successful, I would say as long as I have God and I'm incorporating that into my lifestyle, then no matter what else happens, I would say successful, right? Because I can go out and start a business and it'll fail utterly and I make a public embarrassment of myself, right? But at the end of the day, I'll turn my phone off and then it's just me and God again. So I'm like,
yeah, that's true.
Let's try again, you know? so like really it comes down to a point of like, you know, where are you finding your fulfillment?
Yeah.
So that's why I don't like, you know, worry when I'm not going to a party or something, or when a girl doesn't text me back, or maybe sometimes I do, but you know, sometimes
it depends who the girl
depends
is.
on who the girl is. Depends, but you know, it's just like, or you know what? I even incorporate God. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes, because I pray a lot, right? And what's the beauty of that is that when you pray, you're like you give it to God, right?
Yeah.
And so your situation becomes in His hands, and so now it's like you just turn on the TV and you're just watching it play out instead of you trying to put the strings together and, you know, put the puzzle pieces, you know, where you think they go. You're like, hey, and then you see them being put them by themselves. And so instead of you trying to, you know, doing it your way and you messing it up, it's not God's way. And no matter what happens, you know, at least you'll know that it was within His will. And the beauty of that is that He doesn't make mistakes. So it's going to come out perfect every time. And even though it may not look like it right now, I promise you in hindsight, it's going to turn out in a way that you could have never expected, right? And for the better too. And so I think that's really the beauty of it, is that there's aspects to it that, you know, people don't understand and comprehend. But really, once you involve faith in religion, or not, just like faith in general, into your day-to-day life, it becomes instantly better. Because the last time I remember like not living, because before as a kid, right, 14-year-old kid, I'd find my fulfillment in like Fortnite and things like that, right, as from a game, because that's what I found made me satisfied, right?
Yeah, but there's
nothing wrong with that.
There's no issue with
nothing
that.
wrong with that at
all.
all.
Still really young.
Yeah, but I'm saying like as you get older, you want to kind of replace that fulfillment with something that you'll carry on into your life, right? Because you'll phase out of that. You'll phase out of video games. You'll phase out of you know, like certain phases, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say you can phase out of God, right? You can fall in and out of a relationship with Him, but I wouldn't say you can really phase out of it, because there's been times, you know, where it's hard. It's because I would say the closer you get to God, the harder it is to maintain that relationship, because then all of a sudden you'll see like things that are you know,
like things that pull you away.
Yeah, have you heard the saying that, you know, if the devil doesn't mess with you, then you're doing something wrong? Because like, think about it, right?
That's nice.
Because like if you're doing something that the devil would like, he's gonna leave you be, because he's gonna let you live, so that at the end of the day you're living on his side versus God's, right? But if you're praying and if you're trying to stay away from things that are wicked in God's eyes, he's gonna try and be like, no. So he's gonna try and push things onto you that are gonna get you to go back to him, because he doesn't want you to live according to God, right? And so the closer you get to God, the harder your life becomes. And I wouldn't even say I would say mentally too, because then all of a sudden the little voice in your head becomes louder. Be like, you know what? It's just, you can do that. I don't care.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad people out there too.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say it's I would say faith is something that cannot be taught, right? It has to be learned, experience too. And one thing that I want to do, I want to go to like a country like Bolivia or something like that, some foreign country, right? And I really just kind of want to like have a solidarity trip, because I feel like that, like, when Jesus spent his time in the desert, he got tempted too, right there, right?
Yeah.
Because that was the closest he's been to God, and the devil himself had to go to him and try and pull him back. So you can see, like, when you do these little steps, you get tugged away a little bit, but when you withstand from that, your life becomes so much better. And so there's so many things in life that fulfill you for a temporary moment, right? But I would say only God can fulfill you for
forever. Yeah. I mean, my religion is very interesting, because it gives you something to look forward to after you die. It's like this perfect, this true world after you die. It's something to look forward to. Mm-hmm. Like you said, like our life right now it's temporary, but there's something that we're living, something greater that we're going to be living for internally, mm-hmm. forever and forever and ever and ever.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Because now you have fulfillment on both ends of life. And you know what? This whole topic just like boggles my mind, right? Because I struggle to think about, like, what is eternity? And because
it hurts my brain.
It physically hurts my brain.
Like, it hurts to think about what infinity is, because it's incomprehensible.
No, it literally is. And it makes you wonder. You're like, it kind of reassures you that there actually is something. Because you know what? People doubt the existence of God. And I really want to have a sit-down conversation with one of them and just get their perspective on it, right? Because you know what? People say that God failed them because of something that happened in their life.
Well, they failed themselves, I guess.
No, because you know what? Sometimes they have really good points, too. They'll be like, my wife was taken in an accident. Then I lost my child a couple weeks later. And you see all these things, right? And they're like there was like, where was God in this when this was happening?
Yeah.
And so it's those types of scenarios that, I don't think I would be able to answer, but because I don't want to say like it's messed up saying, well, what is it trying to teach you, right? But you know what? We look at the book of Job, and he literally had everything taken from him.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah. For real. But again, really, no matter where you are, right? And you know what? I feel super cliche saying just pray about it, but you really have to believe that prayer works. Because it does. And there's miracles that can come about once you actually incorporate real faith. And people like to bring up, if God is real, why are all these shootings happening? If God is real, why is cancer in existence, right? And there are questions that I can't answer, right? But that doesn't mean that they don't have an answer. And that doesn't mean that God was the one behind them. I would say I can't answer for why shootings are happening. I would just say that that's because evil exists in the world. But again, if evil didn't exist in the world, then we would have no free will. And if we have no free will, then we wouldn't have a choice whether or not to worship God or not, right? Which takes away from the validity of our faith. In the sense that in order to know what is good, you have to know what is bad.
Okay.
And so let's say hypothetically we didn't have free will and God forced us to be good all the time. Would that be fair? And people like to say, well, yeah, but think about it. The only reason that we have free will is because God lets us. And so if we didn't have free will, we would literally be like robots, because we wouldn't be able to do things according to our actions or according to how we want to live. And so
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of a complex topic. I don't know if I'm wording it in the best way, but I guess really what I'm trying to say is that our God wouldn't be a God of authenticity if he forced us to live how he wanted us to live, right? Because if I wanted to, I can go out and completely cut my faith out tomorrow if I wanted to, right? I'm not, but just hypothetically speaking. But the beauty of it is that I can choose whether I want to do something or not. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to suffer the consequences whether I choose to do bad or good. So out of my own free will and out of my own understanding, I know that for the betterment of me and my soul, I have to live according to God. Otherwise, when I die, I'm going to face something that I'd rather, not. I'd be met with a fate that I'm trying my best to stay away from, But
what I can't understand is whenever people blame God for all the bad things, why can't they thank God for all the amazing things that are in life? Because there are so many things that are absolutely a blessing.
Yeah. And I was literally last night I was thinking about this, and I was like, you know what? We are so blessed, and people don't even realize that. Like, if you are watching this right now, you are blessed because you have access to internet. And I'm assuming you're either watching it from a phone or like a laptop or something like a computer. And so that means that you have access to technology. When you comparison is bad, right? But when you put it into perspective, the majority of the world, there are billions of people who don't even know what YouTube is and what the internet is, because they're working from a young age to survive. They're literally living to survive.
Yeah,
right?
There's a lot of people who have it a lot worse than we do.
Yeah, and so that's where you really have to be grateful for your situation, because you can have a bad day or a bad week, but at least you have running water in your house, right? At least you have a roof over your head at night.
But I feel like humans are kind of dumb. They're kind of dumb in the sense that they don't learn the lessons unless they learn them the really hard way.
Yeah.
Or they're not grateful for the things that they have unless everything is taken away from them.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the paradox, right?
Yeah.
Because unless you have everything taken away from you, I said that in quotation marks, then you won't understand how valuable the things you have in life are, right? If let's say one of your parents die, right now you wouldn't be as grateful for them until after they die. But that's for some weird reason, right? But with faith, you can be grateful for everything in the present before you lose everything. Yeah. Before you lose your house, before you lose your kids or your parents, right? But that's kind of the weird thing about humans, is that we don't really learn things unless we learn them the really, really, really hard way. Yeah. And for you, example, you had to leave your home basically and come to a brand new foreign place and figure things out again. But you didn't even realize that until after. Yeah. Until after. But that's the case for a lot of people. I would say maybe not the majority, but that's kind of the weird part of it.
Yeah. I would say we really have to make sure we're counting our blessings, right?
Yeah, and it's a practice.
It is a practice. It definitely comes over time.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it is a practice. You wake up every morning and you say what you're grateful for. Yeah. But that takes practice. It has to become routine. It has to become a habit.
When was the last time you really felt gratitude in your life for everything around you? Look at us right now. We're in a nice air-conditioned building, right? And we're giving a message through technology. Just this whole situation right now means that we're super blessed, right?
That's true.
And so we have to really be thankful for the position we're in. And this is regardless of anything, right? We go to a good school. We have good households. Yeah. When you really take into account everything that is in your life, it's really hard.
It's kind of hard not to tear up.
It feels wrong to complain about anything anymore. Because I remember I was complaining when I was a kid. I'd be so mad when my parents would make pork chops or something, because I would hate pork chops, right?
But at least you have.
But then, like, at least I had food on my
A
plate.
lot of people who don't have food in this world.
And you know, my dad made he made me learn the lesson. I remember he'd put on videos, he'd be like documentaries of like little kids in Africa.
You have a good father.
And they bought bones, and I'm like,
dude,
like, is that messed up to show like a little 8-year-old kid? I would say partially, right? But you know,
that's a good dad.
I didn't complain after that.
Yeah, you have a good father. Dude, recently I've been seeing a lot of ads on YouTube of kids like just starving.
Yeah, I know,
like,
it's super sad.
Like little kids, like who are 4 to 5 years old. You can see their ribs.
Yeah.
And there's like flies around them.
Yeah, I know, it's actually heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and that's what reality is, you know? I think Christianity, like it kind of sends the message of giving back to your community.
Yeah.
Like if you see a poor person, you have to give them money. Like,
yeah.
And like this can go into a whole segment in itself of like, is it moral? Like, okay, like you give a homeless person $5, right? But a lot of people don't give them $5 because they think that they're gonna go spend it on drugs or alcohol or cigarettes or whatever, right? But that's not the point.
Yeah.
That's truly not the point.
Yeah.
And like you shouldn't be doing things to try and impress other people or like not even trying to impress God, but you should do it out of the kindness of your own heart.
Yeah. Like, but no, you make a good point, right? People are hesitant to give to people because they don't know what's going to be on the other side of that transaction, right?
Yeah.
But even if you give someone money and they go out and they buy some drugs or alcohol or something, at least you gave them money with the I would say feeling that you did a part of good, like for the betterment of that person's life, you contributed to it. And you know, because it's impossible to know what someone's gonna do with the money after you give it to them, but at least you made the effort to make their lives a little bit better by contributing to them. Because before that, they didn't have any money, so even if they were to go spend it on drugs and alcohol, right? You know, I don't want to say you're enabling them to do that, but you know, it's such a It's a topic that could be taken a bunch of ways, right? But I would say, you know, at least you're making the good conscious effort to better them, right? Because you know what? They could just be needing a meal for the day. And with that $5, you know, they'll just go to their local restaurant and order something to fill them up. Because that person could have been on the brink of like starvation. And you just save them from that too. Yeah.
How many people do y'all see on the streets and you just ignore them? And when you ignore them, you feel kind of bad.
You do.
At that moment of time, you feel bad, but then as the day goes on, you forget about it. But at that moment of time, that's God testing you, maybe. Like, that could be one of God's tests.
And you know what? You know what they say? That sometimes they're like angels in disguise. Because it's like, you know. But you know what? That's what I like about like Christianity, too. That it preaches a message of care for the poor, right?
Yeah.
Because the poor are Jesus. You know, because he says that, and he says so. He's like the I forgot the exact message he says, but to paraphrase is like the first will be last, and the last will be first, right? That can be taken into
What does that mean?
I would say it's talking in about a sense of, I guess, our world, right? Because when we think of first, right, who's at the top of the list? I would say it's people with money. Right. Yeah.
Well, like,
and so when you trickle down, the last is like the people who are in like a really bad situation, like, you know, homeless, starving, like just those who are suffering day to day.
Okay.
Right. But really, us as blessed individuals, we really have to make sure we're doing our part to contribute to the betterment of their lives. Right? Because you know what, I saw a story the other day. And it was this guy, and he was talking about why he'd never own a Lamborghini. And he said that he was living in LA, and he just bought a Lamborghini, right? And as he was taking it down the street, he just passed by a row of homeless people, and he just saw the look in their eyes, and instantly his heart just got ripped out of him, right? Because he's driving this $400,000 car, and he's looking at all these people who have nothing. And in him, he's just like, he used that money for himself. And like he knew that he could have put that towards better use, right? And so that's why, like, being rich and living according to God, I don't want to say that they go against each other, but it's super hard to maintain a God-followed lifestyle when you have all this money, because it becomes super tempting to spend it on yourself versus spending it for the greater good, you know. So if I ever were to get an abundance of money, I really want to make sure that I change someone's life. You know, maybe even a couple hundred. Like almost like a Mr. Beast, right? But something more personalized.
Yeah.
You know. But I remember this one time when I was in Chicago, and I gave this guy like my last $20, right? And I gave it to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he didn't even say a word. He just looked me in my eyes, and I could just feel his gratefulness, like his gratitude. And that is a feeling that you actually can't buy, right? People say, "Oh, you paid him $20 for that." No, like, you know, it's a byproduct of my contribution, and I didn't do that so that I can feel good about myself. I did that because I saw someone who was in a challenged position, and I had the capability to alleviate him just for that temporary moment. And so when you realize that you have the power to just make someone's day for a couple of hours, like a couple of minutes or something, why wouldn't you go do that? You know, like it kind of, I wouldn't say it's like a moral battle, right? But really, if you have the power to make someone happy for a little bit, then by all means go for it, right?
Yeah,
because like, really, what are you losing? Like the money's going to come back to you, right? Because it's in circulation, right? So it's circulating. So no matter how much you give, it's going to come back, right? But that person could be like, if you think about it, what do you need in life?
Well, you need
food, you need water.
Oh, like the need.
Yeah, like actual necessities.
Food and water.
Food, water, shelter, probably.
Yeah.
That person was lacking all three of those. Starving, you know, most likely thirsty, right? And they didn't even have a shelter. They didn't have no house. So like when you take into account your situation versus theirs, you know, you feel compelled to actually do your part and give to them, right? And just the other day, I was talking to this guy. I was at a bowling alley, right? And he walked in. And I didn't know at the time, but he was homeless, right? But he just sat me down. We had a really good conversation for a couple of hours. Shout out Cornell.
Cornell.
That's what his name is, Cornell. Shout out Cornell. But no, he really was like, sometimes all they need is a good conversation too. Because, you know, they're just by themselves all day. Like every single day on the way to school, there's always this guy just at the corner standing. And every time I pass by him, right, I'll always pray for him in my mind, right? But one day I really want to go out there and, you know, just actually give him some, like a fat stack of cash or something like that. Something that'll change his life. Because I just feel terrible. I feel terrible just driving past him every day, right? I'll pray for him, right? But I really want to do something that'll make him, like, change his life, like, not permanently, but, you know, actually have an impact on him, right?
Yeah, so what you're saying is that faith puts things into perspective.
Faith does put things into perspective. And I would say faith puts things into position, too.
Ooh.
Because...
What do you mean by that?
So there are so many situations in life that you don't know what's on the other end of them. Unless you walk by faith, right? Not walk by sight, you got to walk by faith. And that's something super hard to do, being obedient to that. Because, you know, there's you know how there's that voice in your head that's always telling you something bad? Well, there's also that opposite voice that's telling you something good. But which voice is louder? It's going to be the one that's telling you something bad, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the one that you're most...
More times than not, for sure.
Yeah, that's the one that you're most accustomed to. Like when you're in the gym... And you get that last rep in, and that voice saying, give up, you're already tired. Like, you know, take that extra rest. You got to really tune that out and listen to that other voice saying, just go on a little bit further. One more rep. One more rep, and you'll thank yourself later. Like, so it's identifying that voice and putting it into practice what you're hearing. Because when you do that, your life starts to change for the better. And I think that's the beauty of it. Now, we've talked a lot about our experience, right? But I want to kind of bring it on to how other people, if they don't know God, how they can find God, right? And so
we can talk about that.
Everyone's in a current situation right now, like, because it's such a general topic, right? So everyone is in a situation right now, and regardless of what that situation is, I would say that there's always a way you can incorporate God into it. So if you're like finding a new job, or if you're struggling in class, or if you're like trying to find love, you can always incorporate God into whatever your situation is, right? And really, it's super hard because everyone has their own coming up story on how they found God, right? And some people don't want to find God, right?
Yeah.
But you can't force anything upon them because they have to find it on their own free will. But if you're interested, I would say here's what I would do if I were in your position. I would really take into account what led me to that position and how I would say this prayer, right? If I were in a position that I didn't necessarily want to be in, and I knew that, and I was feeling kind of drained from it or empty, like let's say I was struggling in school, and I wanted to bring God into that, right? Because those two are kind of you wouldn't really associate those topics with each other, right? Like if you're struggling in English class or something, like it's like how could you bring God into that? Well, I would say I would take it into prayer, and I would just be like, God, I know I haven't, we haven't spoken a while, but it's been told to me that you're always waiting for me to come back, and that you'll always welcome me back into open arms. And so I really just want to see your presence encompass my life. I really just want to see your works become alive within my reality. I want to feel your presence happening onto me within this current time. And I would say just by saying that, your life changes. And you know what? I would say it's like
you feel better.
You feel better. You feel relieved because now you've placed your situation into something that's out of your control, right? Because before that, you were living by your will. Mm-hmm. But now that you give it up to God, it's His will. So really, all you can do now is just be faithful.
Yeah.
And from that, I promise you, if you wait, the results are going to be so worth it. Because there have been so many situations that I thought that I could not get out of, that I thought I was just going to crash and burn. And so I immediately started praying about it. And then all of a sudden it turned out better than I thought it could be. Right? Because, the saying, God works in mysterious ways. Yeah. They don't say that they don't say that for no reason. Like, they say that because it's true. Because there are things that happen behind the scenes that we have no clue about. But like I said before, right? God sees our future and we only see our present. So He knows how to fit things perfectly so that they line up. And it's something that can only be done by God. Like, as humans, we are incapable of producing a perfect life without God. And there are so many things that we'll encounter that will make us question our faith. I just lost this job. God, why did that happen to me? Well, maybe down the line, that job was going to be the end of you, right? So He had to remove you from that job to keep you, right? So there's just so many things that, we don't know what could be good or what could be bad, but we just have to live by the will of God.
Yeah, for the viewer, you are not alone in the difficult situation that you are in. God is by your side. God is with you. God is holding your hand. And that is a beautiful image to think of, that you are not alone in anything that you're going through. One of my favorite sayings that come from Scripture is, fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. You shouldn't fear the things that happen to you in life because it's temporary. But whenever you're going through something hard, it's kind of hard to extrapolate yourself from yourself and to think in terms of God, right? So what I mean by that is it's really easy to get caught up in your difficult situation, whatever it may be, right? It's really easy to get caught in a loop, to get caught in a cycle, and you think that there's no way out. But you just have to remember that God is there. God is with you always. God is always with you. So you have nothing to fear at all. And I think a lot of us, especially me, I go around living life in fear. Just like subconsciously, I'm fearful of something bad happening, right? So when you give that up, when you take a deep breath and you give that up, you give up that fear, and you give it up to God, you can live in a state of bliss. You live blissfully because you know that nothing that happens on earth is going to last forever. And whenever you're going through something hard, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're going to be in this situation for a very long time. It feels like there's no way out. It feels like you're stuck. But there's God waiting for you to reach out your hand. And then He's going to grab it. And then y'all are going to walk into an eternal life together. He's going to help you through your hardships. And that's true. And that's a message that I'm grateful that my family tells me, and I'm grateful that we even go to a school that it's a Catholic school. It sounds weird. No, it doesn't sound weird. Like it's a weird word. It's like it doesn't sound weird, but it sounds like I'm in a trap. Like it sounds like it sucks.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's the biggest blessing that I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Going to a school, I get to go to class every day that teaches about God, that teaches about Catholicism. And it's an absolute blessing because my faith it has never been stronger than it is now. And faith is just so important. Like, it's just, whenever you're going through something hard, like I said, it's really easy to think that you're alone. And especially me, and a lot of people, I'm sure that they can relate to this, that they try and do things on their own. And it's just really hard to do things that are really hard on your own. Like when you lose a job, it's really hard to get through that alone. So like you really need something, or else you're going to find that vice in something else like alcohol or drugs. You're like, oh, I just lost my job. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. But if you're a really strong and willed individual, you're going to go to church. You're going to go speak to God and try and like reach your hand out so he can guide you into the right direction. I mean, that's kind of what life is about. It's kind of it's trying to find what the right direction is, the direction that's gonna ultimately benefit you in the end. But a lot of times it's hard. It's hard. It's the devil. Satan's all around us. It's telling us the complete opposite. Oh, do this, do that, do that. Feel good in the now. Feel good in the present. And that life is not all about that. Life is so much more than just segments in time that you're going to feel good, because those go away. And they go away a lot. And at the end of the day, you're going to need something to hold on to. You're going to need something to grasp onto. And that thing for me is God. That thing for me is that it's knowing that I'm not alone in this. I'm not alone on this ride of life. Because if you're going through life alone, it can really suck. Like, whenever I see a homeless person, sometimes I'm just like, I kind of tear down in the inside because they're so alone. And we live in a world that is so... Well, we live in America, right? And America it has its downs, but it has a lot of ups. Man, I actually went down to California a few years ago, and we walked down Santa Monica, like the Santa Monica area, and there was, I swear to God, like 2 blocks of tents, like on the beach, of just homeless people. And it's like, okay, this is one of the richest cities in the world, and yet there's still a huge homeless problem. It doesn't calculate. And that's kind of a different issue in itself, is trying to solve the homeless problem that we have in this country. But it's really sad. To me, it's really sad to see people who are suffering, and there's nobody that's really trying to help them because they're so consumed in themselves. And that's another thing that faith does, or more religion, is that it gives you a kind of, not job, but it makes you realize that you need to serve your community. Like you need to get out of your ego, like you need to get out of yourself. And you need to start helping people, because a lot of times when you start helping people, you find who you are. You find what's meaningful in life. That's what I want to say.
No, that's a really good point. I would say that it makes you realize that life is bigger than yourself, because people will go about living and all they're thinking about is themselves.
Life is best shared with other people.
It is.
Relationships are very important.
People like to say it's lonely at the top, right? But think about it. Is it really? Because, I understand that, if you're like in a super top position, it's hard to maintain good relationships, because you're in that position, right? But I wouldn't say it's lonely at the top. I would say you're disciplined at the top, in the sense that, it's kind of going off topic a little bit, but the sense of loneliness is only because, you feel kind of not dissatisfied, but I would say because you don't have that outside realm fulfillment, right? And so there are a lot of things, and you made a good point earlier when you were talking about the the wealth distribution, and there are a lot of explanations for that. Some political things and things like that. But really, I would say, man, it's super hard to put a label on just this whole thing because it really is a bad problem.
Yeah, and it's a difficult issue and a difficult topic to.
And I would say just due to our lack of experience in life, I can't really place a 1-foot answer on it. But I would say what we can do, although we can't change the situation as a whole, we can contribute to bettering it, right? And so that's why it's good to make a conscious effort. Anytime you see someone in that position, just help them out with what you can.
This might be a stretch of a question, but do you think if we had a better foundation of religion in our society, that there wouldn't be so much homeless? Like there wouldn't be so many people who
I think that's more of like a monetary thing, like with something with money, right? Have you heard the saying that if you gave everyone an equal amount of money, those who were rich before will become rich again, and those who were poor before will become poor again, right? So the money's going to allocate itself back to its the people.
Yeah.
But I think that goes into a sense of, like just different type of practices with the money. That's like a different topic, right? I would say even back in the time of Jesus, there's struggling people and there's rich people.
That's
right?
True. It's always
been a problem.
Yeah, it's always been a problem.
But again, Jesus says like, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the kingdom of earth. I think, or the kingdom of earth. One of the two, right? I'm paraphrasing. But we really have to understand that when we see someone in that position, we're looking at Jesus. Because think about it. He was like the lowest person in his society, right? Because although he wasn't necessarily homeless, right? But he was thrashed. And he was abused on day-to-day basis. And he was literally like ridiculed no matter where he went. And so when you take into perspective that he was living the closest to God, but he was shunned by society, I would say that it wasn't the fault of him. It's just set up that way, right? But when I say God, what do you envision that as?
I envision God as me and you. You are God and I am God. But then people might be like, "Oh, you're narcissistic," or whatever.
That's
but like think about it. Like, what isn't that like the reason why Jesus? Not the reason why Jesus, but like that's one of Jesus' messages is to try and tell us that we're all a part of, like we're all a little part of what God is, right? We all have God in us. Think about it. Think about if you went around life thinking that, in a sense, that you are God. But not really, not in that sense of like I'm better than everybody else, or I'm God in the sense of like I'm the only thing that's important, but in the sense of like I have God-like aspects to my life and I can live according to God. And if I live according to God, then I will become a piece of God.
I think
it's a very powerful thing to think about, because it's your life would become not just better, but it would become righteous, and you would become virtuous, and you'd become you'd become not hard, but strong-willed and resentless. Not resentless.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Not resentful. What's the word?
Resilient.
Not resentful. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I get what you're saying. I think that's more of like I forgot. There's a certain religion that believes that there's like a secret knowledge that only the enlightened can obtain.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I would say it's better defined as we're an emulation of God's presence, right? Not necessarily the word God himself, but I would say we're a portrayal of what God can do to someone. So I wouldn't compare myself on the level of God, right? But I would say that through his grace, I'm able to emulate the light that he shines upon me. And from my actions, they'll know that I have God in me. So I would say if you can do that, then you're set. You're good. Like, you are successful. I would say that's the definition. According to me, that's the definition. If I can look at you and I know that you live according to God and that you are fulfilled through God, then I would say your life is successful. Because think about it. No matter what happens, if you have God, you're good. Like, you can go broke and go homeless and lose everything, but at the end of the day, you still have God. And so even if you were to die the next day, like, you're good. Like, you could have all this money, all these cars, drugs, alcohol, sex, everything, but if you don't have God, then you're screwed.
Like, you're not going to be happy. That's just true. I mean, like, and there's been a lot of examples in our society of mega wealthy celebrities who have everything you could think of. They have the fame, they have the money, they have the girls, they have the cars, they have the houses, but yet they're still not happy. And there's a simple answer for that, is that they're lacking the aspect of spirituality, true spirituality, because people find that in little things. Like I said earlier in the podcast, people find that in little things.
Yeah, and you know what? Just very recently, Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis. That song that Ryan came out to, I don't know if you know that was a Christian song.
Love Sosa?
No, that was Tank Davis.
Oh, wait.
The one that Ryan came out to. The one he came out to, what was it called? I think it was called like Where My Feet May Fail or something. But it was like the song that if you listen, that was a Christian song, right? Because I don't know if you've been keeping up with Ryan and his journey, but he's a really faithful guy.
I didn't know that.
Even though he lost the fight, right, he still had God.
Well, yeah, and he did post a picture of him and Tank after the fight.
Yeah.
Of saying what did he say? He was like, I hope we fight later or something like that. Yeah. Which just shows that he wasn't like pessimistic about him losing, or like he wasn't like in a negative attitude about him losing or anything like that. He's not full of himself.
Yeah. But you know what? There was a reason for that. Because if we don't know what his path in life is, right?
Yeah.
But I can say that he definitely learned a lot from that fight. And if he were to win instead of lose, he would become... I have a logical assumption to say that his ego would kind of become inflated a little bit. That he wouldn't really get the essence of his purpose had he won that fight. Because now that he lost, he knows what it takes to really be great now.
That's
true.
That he has
experience. So I'm telling you,
that's true.
Like things work out in ways that you don't envision them to be, right? So although yes, he was empowered by God, that doesn't necessarily grant him a win every time. Because you can love God and worship him and everything, but that doesn't mean that you're going to come out on top every time. I would say it just means that it's going to play out according to God's will.
Yeah.
And in that sense...
That's a really good point.
Yeah. And so in that sense, not necessarily that it played out... Maybe in the present moment it didn't play out for you, but in the long run, I would say you got the better end of it. Right? Because even though he didn't win the fight, I would say he's on the track to win the war. Right? So...
He didn't win the battle, but he's going to win the war.
He's going to win the war. And that's really what the end goal is, winning the war, right? But you can relate that to so many other things in life. You know, like how many times have something, gone? There was, I'm just saying this because this is the thing that I can relate it to, right? But I was talking to this girl a couple months back.
Okay.
And she texted me, she was like, yeah, man, I'm just leading you on, by the way. And I was like, what the? Okay, like,
she said that
first of all, that's kind of a weird thing to send someone that you're leading them on. But I'm like, in the present moment, I was like, what the heck? Like, I read that text and I was like, what? I just like spent all this time talking to you and committing myself to you and you tell me that, right? But when I think about it, right, like, can you imagine had that not happened and I went and I got myself into a relationship with her and it turned out to like destroy me?
Yeah.
So it's almost like God protected me from it. So even though I was hurt in the moment, I'm grateful for it now. So there are things that in life that play out, maybe not to your,
like to what you would want,
yeah,
but to what you need. To happen
exactly. Because what you want is not always what you need. So even though I wanted a relationship in the time, I didn't need that relationship.
Yeah.
Actually, I wasn't supposed to have. I should rephrase. I wasn't supposed to have that relationship, because a relationship, the one that I was looking for, it involved God. And that one had like no sense of God in it at all. And I knew that, right? So it was a good thing that I got away from it. I would say now, I would say that if I were to get in a relationship now, that you know what? There's a thing too. Last episode we talked about relationships. And we also talked about God. This episode we're talking about God, talking about relationships, right? But I would say that we shouldn't awaken love until it's ready. It says that, I think it says that in Song of Solomon or something like that. But don't force something that's that's not ready yet. Because although you may want it, you may like be desiring for it. Because that's the situation that I'm in right now, right? Kind of spilling a little bit of my personal details, right? But I really want something to happen right now with someone, right? But I don't want to force it. I don't want to wake it up until it's ready. So every day I have to remind myself, I'm like, yo, you cannot be doing this because you don't want to make it come out prematurely and then all of a sudden it's not what God intended it to be, right?
Yeah, but like, don't you think that there's a fine line between never doing what, like there's a fine line between always waiting and just doing what you really want to do.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I would say, I think it's Isaiah 61. I think it's in Isaiah 61, right? But it was like, when the time is right, the Lord God will make it happen. That's what I live by.
Whenever you're trying to gauge when the time is right, is this something that you feel?
I would say yeah, because I'm always praying about things, right? So I would say there's a sense that come upon you, and you're like, okay, now you can move. Now the green light is showing.
Yeah.
Now you can move forward.
That makes sense.
But it's really hard, and that's why you need to get close to God so that you're able to identify when your green light is showing. Because had you not been within that connection, you just go blindly. You'd walk blindly. You'd walk with a blindfold on.
That's true.
And then so you wouldn't even know whether you were supposed to be there or not. And so let's say I wasn't with God, right? And I wasn't praying about it. Man, I probably would have made a move like months ago. But, I don't know where that would have led. And had I not done the things that I'm like supposed to do according to God's will, right? I don't know if that would have turned out in God's intentions, right? So there are so many things that you have to kind of take into account for. And, I don't want to like be the person that, because I believe that no time is the right time. But I also believe that whatever time it is in God's timing, right? So which makes it the perfect time. Well, it's a super hard contract because the things kind of contradict each other. Yeah. But I would say that as long as I'm obeying God, I know that things will turn out fine. So even though, I'm stressing because, someone's not texting me back or, that things aren't really looking bright in the moment, I'm like, whether this fails or not, I don't really, it doesn't really matter to me because I need to make sure that it's within God's will. Because he knows what's best for both me and the other person.
And it sounds like you have faith in the outcome. Like whatever may happen in the end, you're totally faithful in that. Like you're totally okay with it as well.
Exactly.
A lot of people are not okay with like things not happening the way that they want it to happen. Yeah. So then they become stressful or resentful and frustrated. But from what you're saying, it sounds like you're totally okay with almost bad things happening to you.
I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Like, the person could block me tomorrow. Yeah. And I'd be like, thank you, God, for giving me that answer. Like, thank you for showing me that that's not where I was supposed to go. So when I'm telling you, like there are levels to this. When you incorporate God, your vision becomes clear. The clarity you gain the sense of clarity, right? Because now all of a sudden you see things from a different perspective. And so instead of being like what could I have done better so that she wouldn't block me, I'll be like, thank you, God, for showing me that's not the path that I was supposed to take. That you have something in store that's better for me. That you know something that I don't, and that's what I have to be grateful for. Yeah. So it almost comes to the sense you have to be grateful for the hardships that come upon you, because you don't know what it could be trying to lead you to, right? So that's the beauty of it. And so that's why I live my life so close to God, because I know that when I do that, then I'm fine no matter what happens. So there's like so many things that you can, put that in, apply that to for any situation. And then when you do that, I promise you, you're going to feel so much better about what happens than had you not.
Think about it like this. Don't pray for the storm to pass, but to grow through the storm. To grow whenever it is raining.
You know what they say? The garden doesn't grow when it's sunny. The garden grows when it rains.
There's no rainbow without rain. There isn't any happiness without pain.
Little poetry.
We're about to get little poetry wars going on now.
Get a little poetry in here. No, but again, like when you think about it, when it was in the storm, right? When all the Jesus and his apostles were on the boat in the storm, what happened? He was calm in the storm, right? He was walking on water. Ooh. And everyone was like, what the? Like, you're going to drown. But he's like, ye of little faith. Like, do you not know who the Father is? And so that's why he was like, come out to me. And so Peter, he was like the one. And I think that he like fell initially or something because he lacked faith. He had shaky faith, right? But you have to really have solid faith. And when you do that, you can walk on water in any storm that comes upon you.
That's right. Don't wish for the storm to pass, but to grow through the storm. Think about it. Man, whenever I read scripture sometimes, and whenever like Jesus is talking to the people that he's talking to, and he's like, whenever you treat me bad, you're treating God bad, right? Like whenever you catch these things in these verses in scripture, you're like, oh my gosh. You're like, if Jesus was a historical figure, right? So he was real. He lived in the flesh. He was real. He was real. Like imagine that. Imagine the Son of God coming down upon your city, upon your country, and telling you that he is God in himself, right? So you like sometimes if you're kind of doubting God, if you're ever in that sense of like, why God, why have you done these things to me? Remember that Jesus came down and he helped fix society, right? Because society's bad. Society has a lot of godless things in it. And you probably have a lot of godless things in your life that you're doing right now. I am guilty of that as well.
I too.
Put my hand up for that one. Think about it.
No,
he's here to save you. To save you from the devil. To save you from living a bad life. Everybody here, everybody listening to this wants to live a good life. I don't think anybody I know wants to live a bad life.
Yeah.
Just think about the contrary, right? So, faith, religion, any form of religion. No, I take that back completely. Not any form of religion, but just Christianity for me. It's helped me live a good life, a right life, a life that I'm proud to be a part of. Like, yeah, it's like it molds you into this person that you're truly proud of, like instead of always thinking that you should live a life in the future that you really want to live it now. Be courageous enough to live that life in the present because that's all you're really guaranteed. And when you're living faithfully, you're living according to God. You're living as if God exists. You're living as if Jesus is right in front of you, watching your every move. You live in this other domain of life. You live on another level. You live spiritually. You feel awakened all the time. You feel like you really just want to go out into the streets and God has risen. Like you want to be like you want to spread the word once you feel it. Because whenever you go to church and stuff like that, there's a lot of people there who really feel it, and then they want to spread the word. Like that's a big message. That's a big idea in our religion about spreading the word because you really feel it, and you want to spread the joy that you feel. That's very powerful. Mm-hmm. Like whenever you talk to somebody who's truly religious, you feel this energy come off of them. And you're like, wow, you really live this good of a life, and you could live it too. I mean, like I feel like there's a lot of arguments against, not arguments, but a lot of things that people say that are kind of bad about Christianity. We can get into this. It's like this sense of authority. Like atheists. There's this famous atheist who's written books. His name is Sam Harris. I don't know if you've heard of him. He has a lot of debates on YouTube. I like to listen to his stuff because it gives you like an opposing view as to yours, like an opposing belief, and it's good to listen to things that are. It's good to listen to things that oppose your belief because it makes your belief, it makes your faith even stronger when you hear that these people's arguments are they're like missing something to them. So he's an atheist, and he goes and he debates religious people, and he has good points, I guess, but then there's always something missing, because a lot of atheists kind of contradict themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And you know what? It's kind of funny because like what you said earlier, like when you go to church, you feel compelled to spread the message. Sometimes I'll envision myself like preaching, right? And you know what? I kind of want to that, right? Like I want you to just look around this room, right? Because there's things off camera that the viewer can't see, but look around this room. I want you to give me an object, and I want to try and preach, incorporate that with God. I guarantee, the Holy Spirit comes speak through me, right? So just give me any object, and we'll see right now. Just right at the top.
Here, let me give you a pen.
A pen.
Talk about this. Sell this pen.
This pen, right? With this pen, you have the ability to format your thoughts in a way that can be seen for more than one person.
Ooh.
Think about this. With God, you have the ability to show grace for more than one person.
Boom.
You have the ability now with this pen, right? If I were to just leave my thoughts in my head, I'm the only one that can see this. When I have this vehicle that can allow me to transport a message like this, right? Now a message is being shown. Pow! The message of God is now being shown through me when I use myself as the pen and I use the world as the paper, I am now able to spread the message of God. Nothing but my actions, and the action of writing down is the action of spreading the gospel. Man,
that's the spirit.
Woo! No, like what? Think about it. Give me another topic.
Cars
are literal. They can take you from point A to point B. With God, you are being able to take it from your situation to a situation that you can never get to. When you're in a car and you're in traffic and you can't see when the traffic's gonna clear up, man, all I gotta do is pray to God, be like, God, show me the way. And then all of a sudden, when the traffic starts clearing up and your vehicle starts moving at speeds that you thought were never possible, it was moving from bumper to bumper before, and now you're driving down the highway at 70, 80 miles an hour, and you're an unusual acceleration, and God accelerates you to become a better version of yourself. And that is something that you have not. That is something that literally is only possible through God. Go ahead and give me another topic.
Yeah. Water.
Water is the essence of life. Literally, we cannot. Without water, we're not able to live. Just like without God, we're not able to live. And through us, we're the living waters of God. And we are able to. Not only are we able to spread the message of God, but we are able to emulate Him and emulate the grace shine upon Him. With water, you can literally. Water has all these things that are incorporated, right? And when we take into account what we are able to do through our lives, and when we take God, we are literally able to like just formulate this thing. It's so unfathomable. The way how we need water just like we need God. And without water, we would die. Just like without God, we would die spiritually.
Thank you guys for listening to lesson 4 of Society Reformed. I hope y'all enjoyed.
Hold on. Just before we do that, though. If you like this episode, make sure to follow us on our socials. Links will be in the description. Again, I'm Alex.
I'm Roger.
Thank you for listening to Society Reformed. Go out. And
spread the word.
Spread the word.
I hope y'all learned something. I hope y'all enjoyed this podcast. And it was definitely enjoyable.
If this Jesus seems interesting to you, hopefully you'll do some self-reflection on maybe you can incorporate that anywhere in your life. And with that being said, have a good day, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you guys later.